Doesn't that make us a believer? But if we don't believe what God says about us, doesn't that make us an unbeliever? Because we have to believe what God has said about himself, about his Son, about his creation, and about his church. Listen, the way to acknowledge who God has made you is not ego. It's not arrogance. Hear me when I tell you this. I'm not following my notes at all. Being willing to proclaim what God has made me, no matter what the religious would say, is not arrogant. It's actually the highest form of humility. Because I'm making a declaration that I believe God above my counselors. I believe God above my second grade school teacher. I believe God more than my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, those who didn't want me. I believe God. And it's the highest form of humility to divorce myself from my own past. And not identify myself with where I've been and what I've done and what I've come through, but to identify myself according to the Word of God. I'm skipping some verses here. But let me show you this, because every time I preach along these lines, I can almost hear someone say, well, you know, Brother Jimmy, a man ought not to think of himself more highly than he ought. In fact, I was along these lines one time and a guy stood up and said it. And I was glad he did, because I like debating. And when he stood up and he said in that, that tone, well, brother, well, you know, a man ought not to think. More highly of himself than he ought. I said, that's in the Bible, bro. It's in the Bible. But finish the verse, would you? Go to Romans chapter 12. Let me read this to you. If you can, put this up on the screen. And I apologize to you. Sister Fowler whoever's on, I apologize to you now. Romans chapter 12, verse 3. Listen to this. For by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think. But, that's a comma, bro, or whatever that is. That ain't a period. What is that, a semicolon? I flunked English. That ain't a period. But to think. So to think with sober judgment, each according to the measure of faith that God has assigned. So what is Paul saying? He's saying to think of yourself according to faith. Think of yourself according to the faith that God has assigned. Faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the... So you ought to think of yourself according to the Word. That's what Paul is saying. If God didn't say it about you, don't you ever say it about yourself. Because if you think you're just a sinner, that ain't what God said. If you think you're always going to be broke and you're always going to be sick and you're just poor white trash, that ain't what God said. See, humility is accepting what God said. So when I say of myself what the Lord said, that's not arrogance, that's humility. It's arrogant to say, God, you're wrong. Now, I know you said I'm healed, but I'm sick. God, you're wrong. I know you said you would bless me, but I'm cursed. You're wrong. That's arrogance, man. That you're going to tell the Father of all creation he's wrong in what he said to you? Well, that might be true about everyone else, but not me. That's arrogance. That's pride. It's pride to say that you're broken when God made you whole. Because you're believing your own feelings over his word. You're believing your experience over his word. You ought not to believe anything over his word. Go to John chapter 8. I'll go ahead and get started. If the enemy can convince you you are something less than what God has named you, then you'll be willing to accept environments you ought to find intolerable. That's right. And I have discovered over the years of preaching this kind of message to people, when the revelation comes and God turns on the light and they begin to see they are more than who they thought they were, situations they used to embrace, they now wage war against. Relationships they used to think that's all they were worthy of, they no longer accept. They don't allow people to mistreat them when they understand they're a child of God. They don't allow poverty to steal and rob and kill from them when they understand they're a child of God. When they know they're blessed, they'll fight poverty. When they know they're healed, they'll fight sickness. When they know they're whole, they'll fight the feelings of brokenness. They'll look in the mirror and say, I might feel downtrodden, but I am not downcast. I will rise again and praise the Lord. I am whole and not broken. No word spoken over you in condemnation are you to accept. But you should condemn those words that are spoken over you in judgment. In other words, don't ever let a lie live in your presence. When they tell you that this is how life will always be, you ought to tell them no. When you understand who you are, you'll walk boldly, you'll talk loudly, and you'll live out loud. You'll live large. And I ain't talking about the size of your car or the size of your house, but the size of your heart. Amen? Because gain ain't godliness. You don't prove to me that you're big by having a big house. But when you got a big heart, you're no longer shrunk and downtrodden and standing in the cave and waiting to die. Listen, he came to give us life, and yet most of the church is waiting to die. What a shame it is that we're afraid to live when he came to give us life, and our greatest hope and our highest anticipation is when we die. We ought not to be afraid of living. And when we know who we are, we won't be. John chapter 8, verse 12. I need to hurry up. I told you I wouldn't preach long. And I told you I won't let a lie live in I'd hate to have to rebuke myself. Then Jesus, John chapter 8, verse 12, then Jesus again spoke to them saying, and we all know this, I am the light of the world. He who follows me will not walk in the darkness, but will have the light of life. Cleve, I need you, sir. I know you are theatrical and dramatic. There ain't nothing laid back about you. I want you to show me, theatrically, dramatically. How do you walk through a room that you're unfamiliar with and it's completely dark? Okay, hold that right there. This is what darkness means. You notice he's not sure of himself. He's halting. He's hesitating. No confidence. That's what darkness means. And this is how people go through life. Unsure of what the next step is going to be. Are they going to be blessed? Are they going to be cursed? Are they going to be whole? Are they going to be broken? Is this going to be good or is this going to be bad? I don't know. So they go through life halting and hesitating, acting as if children of light walking in darkness. This is how, continue showing me. How do you go through that room? That's darkness. Now switch. The room is well laid out, brightly lit. Do you notice the difference? This is how you and I see, but now religion will tell you that's arrogance. How dare you walk so boldly? How dare you walk so confidently? That's no. That's the light, baby. That's the light. I ain't unsure. I ain't afraid. Because I know that my next step, I'm blessed going in, I'm blessed going out, I'm blessed in the city, I'm blessed in the field. Everywhere I go, I'm blessed, so I walk like John Wayne. Listen. Put up 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 16. I know you've got that. Please have that. This is in the New American Standard. And I want you to look at the first 4 words. Act as free men. Whom the Son has set free is free indeed. Peter said, act as a free man. Now, see, listen. Do you know how, oh, help me, Jesus. How drastically would your life change if you just acted as if what God said about you was true? If you just acted as if God wasn't a liar. If you just acted like He is the King of the universe and every word that He speaks is truth. How would your life change if you just acted like you were blessed? I'm not talking waiting till you feel it. I'm just talking act like it's already done. How would your life change if you acted like He had already delivered you? How would you understand what I'm saying? How would your life change if you just acted like God was in love with you? If you just pretended. I'm telling you what, if you just act, you'll get the devil all confused. I remember years ago, Deborah and I, is this okay? Are you getting anything out of this? Deborah and I were in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we were at a very large conference. And up on the stage sat all the bigwigs. Kenneth, Jerry, Jesse. Whoo. And we wanted to sit up there. Deborah said, I'd like to sit up there. And the problem was, though, the Gestapo, a.k.a. the ushers, they were guarding all the entrances. You couldn't get by them. You couldn't get up there with them. But Deborah, my wife, wanted to sit up there. Truth be told, so did I. So this ain't no lie. I told my wife, I said, just stay right here. I'll go get us a couple seats. Because, see, I knew you can go far in life just pretending like you're blessed. Act like you're somebody. So instead of being halting and hesitating and looking at them and making sure we ain't going to make eye contact, so I'm making eye contact with you because I know if you make eye contact with me, I'm going to put my head. That's just showing everyone I don't belong. I just walked up there like I was somebody. And when the usher looked at me, I just pointed at him. And I got up there and I got our seats. And then listen, this is the truth. I walked back down and I told the usher that was guarding, I said, you see those seats up there? Guard them. I got to go get my wife. Yes, sir. I have gone into airports. What I'm telling you is just act like you're blessed. Act like you got it all together. Act like God is daily loading you with benefits. Act like you've got more than enough. Act like you have grace upon grace and of His fullness you've already received. I've gone into airports before and there'd be this long line for the cheap seats. I always hated sitting by the toilet in an airplane. Nobody in first class. Because we're all conditioned. We're all conditioned to stay in our place. Right? Well, as a child of God, do you know where your place is? You've been made to sit in heavenly places with Christ Jesus. You've been made a joint heir. You're not going to become a joint heir someday. You've already been a joint heir. How much has Jesus inherited? Everything. So if you're a joint heir, how much of this world belongs to you? All of it. Oh, no. That's too good to be true. That's why it's called the gospel. Because the gospel is too good to be true. So I told someone this morning, I don't do lines. I don't like lines. Lines take too long. Lines are for common people. Doesn't the Bible say you're a peculiar people? That means you're uncommon. So I just walk up to the first class. And they'd say, your ticket isn't first class. I know. We can't take care of it here. Yes, you can. We can? Yes, you can. Would you please just process me? Yes, sir. I've never been denied. Listen, when Deborah and I used to travel, we used to travel with so much luggage. I mean, man, people would watch us walking through the airports thinking we were something. Because I'd have to get porters to help me with her luggage. Not mine, hers. One time going through London, we had to have 2 porters, 2 things carrying our luggage. And they were making space for us, and you could hear people go, who are they? And so I thought I'd make a big scene of it, and I said, love, love. And I said it out loud so they could all hear. I said, I sure am glad you've learned how to travel lightly. And we got 2 porters helping pull 2 buggies. And one of the old British ladies said, what did he say? And the husband says, he says they're traveling lightly. But in all those times, I never paid for extra luggage. Not one time. In over 10 years of traveling internationally, did I ever pay for it? Why? Because I just pretended I didn't have to. Jesus said in Luke chapter, is this okay? You get it? In Luke chapter 4, he made the vision statement, the proclamation of his ministry. And he said one of the things that he was here to do is to proclaim the favorable year of the Lord. You and I inhabit God's favor, right? You've heard of the Philistines. You've heard of the Hittites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites. Look at God's favor right. For I inhabit the land of favor, and so do you. So how would it be if you just acted like you're favored? You just attempted things common people don't attempt. Why? Because the favor of the Lord will cause money and favor and people and things to be attracted to you. Things will happen for you that don't happen for no one else. Why? Because you know who you are. You know where you're at. I need to hurry up. I can't believe he said he doesn't do lines. I knew a preacher one time who wouldn't go backwards. He didn't believe in going where he came from. His name was Lester Sumrall, changed the world. He would never put his car in reverse. He didn't believe in going backwards. Well, that's just eccentric. When you're successful, you can be eccentric. When you're changing the world, All right, let's keep going. Let's skip some things. Go to 2 Corinthians chapter 3. 2 Corinthians chapter 3. While you're turning there, let me read to you Philippians 4. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. One writer said, I'm strong enough for anything. You'll never encounter, I wish I had more time. You will never encounter a battle that you've not already been empowered to win. Never. You'll never encounter an enemy stronger than you. Oh, he might fake it, but you're stronger. When you read through the Old Testament, as I'm sure you do, you'll discover the children of Israel, though they were faced with many battles, they never lost one as long as they were obedient. As long as they were faithful, they never lost. You couldn't beat them on a battlefield and you couldn't curse them from a mountaintop. They were an unstoppable force as long as they were filled with faith, manifested as obedience. The only time they lost is when they wouldn't believe. Right? What did I say? If you refuse to believe what God has said about you, that makes you a unbeliever. Unbelievers lose. Believers never lose. Oh, they might. I wish I could stand up here and preach you a sermon entitled Utopia. That if you would just believe enough, pray enough, give enough, you would never have another battle. I wish I could. I would like to have that kind of life. But it ain't in the Bible. In this life, you'll have persecutions. In this life, you'll have trials. In this life, you will have to navigate storms. In this life, you will have opposition. But if you steadfastly refuse to give up, to quit, to give in, and you keep confessing who He is, how much He loves you, and who you are in Him, at the end of the day, you will stand victorious, just like the children of Israel. The Bible tells us that all of the nations round about were terrified of that little roving band of slaves. Because everywhere they went, they kicked and they took names. And all the nations round about were terrified. It's time that the devil is terrified of this little roving band called Real Life Church, because every time we kick and take names, every time we encounter darkness, we kick and take names. Why? Because I know who I am. I know where I'm at. Come on. I told Deborah I want to turn that into a hard rock song. I know who I am. And she says, everything sounds the same when you sing it. She thought I was mimicking Bob Dylan. I said, baby, this is hard rock. She said, when you sing it, it sounds the same. 2 Corinthians chapter 3. Such confidence we have through Christ toward God. Not that we are adequate of ourselves or in ourselves to consider anything as coming from ourselves. But our adequacy is of God. Do you see that? It's not that it's coming from us. It's not, we're not great because we're great because He made us great. His hand is on us. His gaze is on us. His love is toward us. So we are completely adequate. Who also made us adequate as servants of a new covenant. Not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. Now you can face your enemies and act as if you've already won. And you change your talk to match your new revelation. Who are you? In closing, go to John chapter 1, verse 16. I'm going to tell you as you're turning there, when you begin to confess who God is, and in the face of your enemies, you confess who you are and how much He loves you, you are openly declaring war on defeat and on poverty and on sickness and all the curse of the law. You're telling the devil, you no longer are going to dominate my life. You no longer are going to steal from me. You ain't taking from my kids, and if it's in my household, it ain't yours, so hands off. Because I have a weapon. It's called the B-I-B-L-E. For of His fullness we have all received in grace upon grace. And we all know what Jesus said in John chapter 8 when He said, I am the light of the world. And none of us would disagree with that, but I want you to see something else Jesus said. In Matthew chapter 5, and I'm bringing this to a close, verse 14. Can you handle this? Jesus said, you are the light of the world. See, our minds don't recoil at He's the light of the world. But if we understood redemption, we'd understand He made us to be like Him. That's what redemption is. It ain't just the forgiveness of sins, it's the recreation. He said, you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a basket. Jaleesa, you need to come forward. Nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand. Who's He talking about? He's talking about you. He's talking about the Son and the daughter of God. He's saying, I lit you. I set you aflame. And I didn't set you aflame so you can go hide. And it gives light to all who are in the house. Then in verse 16, listen to this. Let whose light? Whose light? Whose light? Let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who's in heaven. The world doesn't need people of God hiding in darkness. The world doesn't need people of God doing this. Unsure of what God's going to do. Well, you never know. Yes, you can know. Because if he declared it, he'll do it. And if it's written, then your uncertainty is unnecessary. Jesus said, I lit you. So let your light shine before men so that they can all see your good works and glorify your Father who's in heaven. What a shame that children of God are more comfortable in darkness than in light. That we're more prone to hide than to shine. There's a poem, and Jaleesa is going to come and share it with us, and this will be our closing. After that, Cleve, you end us out. That states that our greatest fear isn't darkness. Our greatest fear is light. Because we've been conditioned to rebel against what God has made us. Believing that if we dared believe it, then we'd be guilty of arrogance. But I want to set you free from that guilt this morning. Just believe what God said. It's not a matter of arrogance. And don't let unlearned, scripturally illiterate people tell you that that's arrogance. No, that's humility. Because I believe God's voice first and foremost. Listen to this poem.
Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Your playing small does nothing for the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that others around you won't feel insecure, as we all shine like children do. It's not just for some of us. It's for everyone. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give others permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
Thank you for watching today. For donation of any amount, we would like to offer you an audio CD of today's message in its entirety. Just contact us here at Real Life Church using the information that is on your screen. For donation of any amount, an audio CD of today's message in its entirety, just contact us here at Real Life Church